This old winter window trick still works in apartments and modern houses. The winter window trick I'm talking about predates central heating, insulation foam, and smart thermostats. It was used in stone houses, wooden farm homes, wartime apartments, and urban tenements. It still works today because the physics behind it haven't changed. What has changed is that most people no longer understand how windows behave in cold weather. The method relies on controlling air layers, not sealing everything airtight. Older homes were cold, but they were not sealed the way modern buildings are. Instead of trying to block every molecule of cold air, people learned how to manage airflow and trapped warmth where it mattered. The winter window trick works by creating a controlled air pocket between the cold exterior glass and the warm interior space. In practical terms, this means adding a secondary barrier on the inside of the window that traps still air. Still air is one of the best insulators available, and it costs almost nothing to create. In the past, this was done with heavy curtains, oiled cloth, wax paper, or removable wooden window inserts. Today, the materials are different, but the principle is exactly the same. Applying the trick in modern apartments without modifying the building is absolutely possible. If you live in an apartment where you can't replace windows or drill into frames, this method is still fully usable. The simplest modern version uses clear plastic window insulation film. When applied correctly, it creates a tight air pocket between the film and the glass, dramatically reducing heat loss. The key detail most people miss is spacing. The film should not touch the glass. That trapped air gap is what stops heat transfer. Once installed, you'll notice fewer drafts, warmer rooms, and reduced condensation. Another historically accurate adaptation is using thick, tightly woven curtains mounted as close to the wall as possible, not hanging loosely in the middle of the room. When closed at night, they recreate the same insulating air layer that older homes relied on during winter. Why did older homes use interior window barriers instead of exterior ones? Exterior shutters and storm windows existed, but they were not always practical in deep winter. Interior solutions were easier to maintain, quicker to repair, and could be adjusted daily. This mattered in eras when fuel was scarce and labour was constant. Interior window barriers also allowed residents to control moisture. Cold glass causes condensation, which leads to damp air and illness if unmanaged. By warming the interior surface through insulation, condensation was reduced naturally. In modern homes, this same issue causes mould around window frames. The old method addresses this without dehumidifiers or electric devices. Using layered window coverings, the historically correct way, is quite important. Layering matters. One thin curtain does almost nothing. Historically, households used multiple layers, a sheer inner layer to slow airflow, followed by a dense outer layer to trap heat. In a modern setting, this can be replicated using a thermal curtain paired with a secondary liner or blanket during extreme cold. The curtain should be sealed at the sides and bottom as much as possible. Even small gaps allow convection currents that pull warm air toward the glass and replace it with cold air. People in cold climates understood this instinctively. Today, most heat loss through windows happens because warm air is allowed to circulate freely against cold surfaces. So, why does this trick actually reduce heating bills without sacrificing comfort? Well, modern heating systems, you see, have to work much harder when warm air is constantly escaping toward cold windows. By insulating windows from the inside, you're reducing the temperature gradient that drives heat loss. In practical terms, this means your heater cycles less often, and honestly, rooms just feel warmer even at lower thermostat settings. This isn't just theoretical, it's measurable. Historically, families got through harsh winters with just one heated room by controlling drafts and insulating windows. Applying the same logic today, entire apartments can retain heat far more efficiently. Now, as for adapting this method for everyday use, older households would adjust window insulation daily. During daylight hours, coverings were partially opened to let in solar heat, but at night everything was sealed tightly. This practice still works. South-facing windows, for instance, should be uncovered during sunny winter days whenever possible, and at sunset, insulation should go back in place immediately. Honestly, this timing alone can make a noticeable difference in how stable the indoor temperature feels. And in flats with large windows, this method is especially effective, since glass is still the weakest point in most modern construction. Now, addressing ventilation without losing heat is important. One concern a lot of folks have these days is ventilation. Older homes weren't airtight, so fresh air exchange happened naturally. When you're using window insulation today, though, controlled ventilation becomes, well, rather important. The historical solution was brief, intentional airing. Windows were opened fully for a short period, usually around midday, then sealed again. This exchanged stale air without cooling the structure itself. Applying this today helps prevent humidity build-up and keeps air quality up, all without constant heat loss. Now, why does this technique align so well with preparedness and resilience principles? This window trick requires no electricity, no fancy tools, and no permanent changes. It can be used for just a single room or scaled up to an entire building. It even works during power outages and fuel shortages. That's why it survived wars, depressions, and fuel rationing. It's a low-tech solution with high reliability, exactly the sort of method anyone interested in preparedness should understand. Modern convenience has replaced knowledge, not effectiveness. And when systems fail, these old methods quickly prove their worth. Let's talk about common mistakes that can really reduce the effectiveness of this approach. The most common one is prioritizing appearance over function. Loose curtains, decorative gaps, and poorly sealed films, they all defeat the purpose, honestly. Another mistake is insulating just one window and leaving the others exposed. Heat loss is cumulative after all. Historically, people treated windows as a system, not just individual features. Every opening mattered. Now, why does this remain an evergreen winter survival technique? Well, this method doesn't depend on trends, brands, or the latest technology. As long as winter exists and buildings have windows, it'll remain relevant. It bridges historical knowledge and modern living without compromise. That's why it belongs in the toolkit of anyone serious about winter preparedness, historical living practices, or energy resilience. If this kind of historically grounded practical knowledge matters to you, do consider subscribing to Warfield Prepper Chronicles and giving this video a like. Share it with someone facing winter who needs solutions that actually work. This is how old knowledge stays alive and, well, genuinely useful.